Hi there, delighted how this film turned out with Joe and Alexis, but before I run it, there's a couple of unique opportunities. First, with these two guys, if you want to ask them a question, I'm actually going to be interviewing them live via the Spitfire channels this Sunday, 1st of December at 1700 hours. So if you have any questions for them, put them in the comments down below or via socials using the handle #theflight@SpitfireAudio. Even if you can't make the stream live, we will be recording it, so you will be able to catch up with it later on the Spitfire channels to see if one of your questions has been addressed. Talking of which, I'm also doing a thing called The Surgery on Saturday at 2 p.m. That's 1400 hours GMT. Again, a live stream where myself and 3 other esteemed composers, more esteemed than me, will be answering, it's not like an AMA talking about us or indeed the standard questions of how I break into show business. It's more about dealing with your specific concerns, needs and problems, like a doctor's surgery, if you will. So again, maybe if you want to put comments down below or address us via socials using the handle #TheSpitfireSurgery2019. Right, let's get this video rolling. Cup of tea?
I'm just thinking about going for lunch now. Yeah, I know, I remember, sounds terrible.
A few years ago, I started a series on YouTube called Creative Cribs. It was on the Spitfire main channel. And one of the first ones that I did was here in the East End with 2 gentlemen who go by the name of The Flight, Alexis Smith and my brother Joe Henson. Since that time, they have basically ripped a new one in the world of computer games music. They scored and were nominated and won an Ivor Novello for Horizon Zero Dawn, and they have since gone on to score Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which they also received an Ivor Novello nomination. So it's really my great pleasure to go back to talk to Alexis and Joe about how they have nailed the workflow of working on these AAA games. I present to you The Flight. Most composers' rooms are like studios without recording desks, mixing consoles.
Yes.
This feels like a blacksmith's shop with some studio equipment in. Why?
So we were working together for a bit in Soho.
Yeah.
As you in your place actually, and you had your own studio as well. But they all, when we were looking at studios, they all felt like studios, which were a bit like submarines, where you have these cocoon spaces which have really good acoustics, but they don't tend to have enough natural light.
Yeah, that was the most important thing. I can't work without natural light.
Really?
Before we got together, I spent 10 years in small rooms with no natural light. So that was our biggest aim, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we looked at a few places around here, and then came in here. You were away.
Yeah, you came in here first.
Yeah.
And you reported back.
Yeah,
Said, I've got this amazing space I found. It's massive, and it's got really high ceilings, and it's got windows, and it's got 2 rooms, and it's got a toilet. Sounds perfect. Come and have a look at it. Then it was a few weeks later when Joe was moving in when I was on holiday, and he phoned me up from in here. And I could hardly hear his voice, the echo on the line. And he just said, so I'm a bit worried.
A bit worried.
Yeah. Why is that, Joe? Well, there's a bit of an echo in here. I said, it'll be fine once we get some books and carpet and stuff.
We did.
It'll be fine.
That's actually been really nice part. We bought carpets, we went to IKEA, got the standard stuff, and then we've been filling them with books, and it's lovely to have books.
Yeah.
Because you can sit and read, but also it breaks up the walls. You can still hear it's quite bad.
Yeah.
But
there's 2 ways of looking at that. Bad. Yeah, it's live. But
In all seriousness, though, I mean, you talk about natural light.
Yeah.
That's a mental health thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that we say we don't smoke cigarettes because we know it's bad for our health.
Yeah.
Yet we knowingly employ work practices that we know is bad for mental health.
I don't know if that's based on when you're a kid and you think being a musician is working through the night and sitting up all night with your bass and being cool. I don't know if it comes from.
We all did that, didn't we? We all did that, but we knew that at this stage in our career, if all things go well, we knew that we were going to have another 20-25 years of working. Now you can't do that in a windowless cell. Renting a room to a budget in London you're going to get a single room with no windows. Which we didn't want. So this was the alternative.
We're not submarine sailors. We're musicians.
You've got to get vibed up by things.
Music's about coming together, being people, dancing around fires. And
it's not just the windows. It's the fact that we're in a real place here. We go out of our door, and there's not just another 12 rooms with people doing the same things as us, or rivals, or friends, or whatever. But we come out of the door, and there's real life, and there's loads of shops and businesses, nothing to do with music,
Lots of
like that.
places
And
to
that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able to, because as I said, it is, once you've kind of decided, okay, right, this is my career, then you've got to think about that stuff as well. You've got to think, okay, everyone else, when they go to a job interview and working out which company to work for, they'll look at the facilities of the office, they'll look at where it is.
Note the kind of the surrounding.
We've got wives, we've got children. For them and for us, it's really important to spend time with our children.
This is something I really wanted to touch on. Obviously, I come to this interview knowing you intimately well, and I'm aware that I think both of you made a decision not to go in a certain direction, which was, I think, very much the direction I was going in, which was 15 projects deep, 3 or 4 assistants, loads of different rooms, massive overheads, all of that kind of stuff. And you made a decision that's not what you wanted.
Well, I was getting really unwell, mentally and physically, I suppose, but maybe the physical stuff was a manifestation of what was going through my head. And you were, we were just starting out working together, and eventually we just went, we need to go into work. We need to work together. Let's go in together, but also we need to kind of make a way of, we're
doing it long term.
Yeah, doing it long term.
Sustainable.
Sustainable. Because
that's
so many people, in our industry, don't think about that, and you see these carcasses of human beings, or their family life falls apart, or their social life falls apart, and there's not. We're so lucky that we get to do what we always wanted to do and what we love doing. Everything else around that, you've got to take care of yourself.
And you were very good, but part of it, this is reminding yourself why you did this. You're not saving lives, we're making music, so let's make it fun again. Yeah. I went into music thinking I was going to be a first called session bass player, studio session bass player, and I ended up being a touring bass player and learning that was a different thing. And then the session studio thing, it's not what it used to be. Because it still is a job, but I don't read music. I couldn't go and work in a pit band. So through you, I got into doing in the studio producing and composing.
But that's massively changed in the time that we started doing it, even the last 10 years. Massively changed, isn't it?
Do you think tech is behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to program on Acolytes. That was the screen.
Not the...
People will be able to work out which one.
Acolyte sampler. So I've got a really strong... That's why this finger's bigger than normal. Normalising a drum loop took you to say 5 minutes. And you'd go outside and have a cigarette or, whatever.
Cup of tea.
But now, obviously, everything... So you had all these enforced breaks when you were doing stuff, either on your synths and samplers or on your SSL or on your ancient old computers. Everything it took a lot longer to do things. You wanted to bounce a track into a multi, make a multi-track of a song. That's a day. That was a day then.
Yeah.
Now it's half an hour.
And then you'd have to take it somewhere. Or you'd have to call a bike.
Yeah.
And you'd send the music, and it would go on a bike.
Rent a timecode DAT.
Rent a timecode. Stripe some tape. More importantly, you'd have to get people who are specialists in different jobs. I remember doing a job a few years ago actually where somebody didn't know that there was such a thing as a mix engineer. Which is mind blowing. But everyone does it themselves. So those jobs now are. You spend a lot of time on your own. That's what I'm saying. You spend and their music is listened to by people on their own as well on headphones.
Yeah, composer is expected to be a producer, an engineer, a mixer, a music editor, everything, and they're assumed they're working on their own. It's perfectly possible, and you get some people who are well suited to that. But I think that the vast majority of people probably don't want to spend their entire working lives alone.
That's something that I've learned that moving to this kind of hub is that actually they're not my competitors, they're not my enemies. In fact, that we we can really help one another.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
When people ask you how to get into the job, how we get up into our careers, it's go and meet as many other composers as you can, because you can share work and you can share skills. But then at this stage of our careers, it's also just keeping them. They should be mates, and we should be sharing skills and knowledge, and also just supporting each other, because everyone finds it very difficult.
The worst person you should vent at is an arsehole.
Yes.
Just go and vent at a friend.
Yeah, and then but you have to realise that, you know, it sounds ridiculous because we write music, and that's what we've got to keep on reminding ourselves. We write music, and anybody watching these videos from outside of it going, I don't know what they're complaining about.
We're not complaining.
No,
Just talking about.
But we have
staying sane.
But you have to remember that we just make music, and when there's a really difficult client, or when you've got writer's block, just go for a walk and come back later.
Part of the technological thing that's changed, I guess, in our professional lifetime, has been the ability for computer games people to go, can I have 5 hours of music? And so what you do is you don't layer up loads of different jobs simultaneously, and you work on a job that takes 2 years.
Yeah.
And how does that differ from the work that you do, say, when you're doing TV and film? Surely that takes some kind of...
You know, we've been talking about how tech has massively sped up all of these things in our career, but it hasn't changed the people who actually... You know, it hasn't changed the fact that you've got to write that music. That's the thing that hasn't changed. At the beginning of your career, you have to just you have to do everything that you think you've got to do, and you've got to work silly hours and everything like that. And hopefully, if you're lucky, that's at a time when you don't have, you know, that you're still, you know, finding your way in life, and, you know.
Damn kids.
Exactly. I was lucky to get all that done before I started a family. But once you are a bit more set up, and you know, you've got some work under your belt that's you know, that's got you to a position where you can do, where you're trying to do, you know, you're doing what you actually really want to do, then I think you've got a choice. You can either use the speed of the technology to be able to do as much as possible, or you can use the speed of the technology to actually let you have a life around work. And I think that's what we chose.
And we know our comfortable bandwidth. Now our comfortable bandwidth is like 2 jobs, and that's
two games,
because they're big. So you can work on one, and then while one of the developers does deliberating, you can do some stuff on the other, and you can kind of leapfrog.
As long as the timelines, as you say, you know, yes. Sometimes you're working on a game that takes 2.5 years, and so there's actually, it's not 2.5 years of 100% of our time. Sometimes,
although Odyssey was. So
that's a franchise that they release.
This is Assassin's Creed.
Release quite often. So actually, that one, it didn't. We had to spend most of a year just doing that.
But
we had to make that decision.
We've always said, it'd be amazing if we could just do one project, really concentrate on one project. And I don't know if you've had a thing where you've got that project and you didn't realise, and you were so busy that it kind of passed you by. And it was like, we knew this is massive. It's going to take a lot. They need a lot of music. It's going to take a long time. And we just had we cleared the decks for a year and just worked on that solidly. It was exhausting, but we called in a friend. Mike, who helped us out with some of the co-writing, and we always had lots of people around, but it was a solid year on that. Well, we did it for 2 years.
We did it for, it was about 18 months, okay. but for a year of it, we were just solid on that, and that's quite rare.
The other job that you didn't mention that we have to do is your heads of department.
Yeah.
So on something like that, you know, where you feel you've got all of the time in the world.
Yeah.
You've got to be so responsible about how you make sure that you get to the checkered flag.
He's good at that.
That's project management,
Yeah.
No.
So we have 2 different ways of. I have a quite a scattergun approach with an overall idea in my head of the job, and then you have a very well-formed list.
As we get in, you can't do it straight away at the beginning. You're working out what they want music. Every different way of delivering stuff in the games world. Sometimes a minute of music can take you a lot longer than another type of minute of music, just on how interactive it is and everything like that. But once we get a grip of that, I do chop up the time we've got into segments, and we'll work out how much we have to do each month, how much we have to do each week, and just make sure we're on top of that. Aside from any contractual stuff, because we, as you say, the most important thing is you get to the end there. Again, because there's two of us, we can join up, or we can split forces, and we can get other people in to be working on our other rig at the same time if we need that capacity. But we've heard of we talk to other people who have got a bit into trouble because if there's just one studio and one throughput, and suddenly you get a little bit behind, that can sing steamroller, and then you're in the last couple of months and you've got to do 100 minutes or something like that. It's just nuts.
That horrible thing that we will bump into people like after, and you'll go, oh my god, you're see-through. But I mean, again, that I think that
our aim is to never get like that, basically.
But from what I can observe, I think that it's establishing that ego can really screw you up. So you're going, we're going to get someone to help write a few bits.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about farming out.
No,
we don't farm out
yet.
Well, we don't need to. We don't want to at the moment because we want to be really involved in everything. We get jobs because they know we're going to do it. We don't write a suite and then farm out the rest of the.
But also you create worlds, don't you? I'm speaking romantically about what you do, but that's my take on it.
Yeah.
I know that for Horizon that you made instruments and stuff. Or was
that was Horizon. They sent us pictures of some made up instruments and said, "Can you tell us how these would sound?" So we got quite excited, wrote quite lengthy Wikipedia documents about these instruments, and then wrote some pieces of music with how they would sound.
So we spent a long time on that. You see, if we'd been under pressure and doing 6 things a week, you couldn't have done that because that was maybe 2 minutes of music, wasn't it? And normally you'd think 2 minutes of music, that's 2 days. You could not have done that process that we really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was great.
Could not have done that in 2 days.
And we went and they liked it, so we did some videos of us. We mocked up the instruments for the animators to show how you play them, and they liked that so much that we went out and mocapped it, which was the most exciting day of my life. So we went out, and that's again, we had the time to go out to Amsterdam, mocap it, do some other characters in the game, do some interviews, come back, and that was because we had bandwidth. The other thing which is difficult to do is to turn work down and to be honest with people and say, this project is amazing, we'd love to do it, but we just haven't got time at the moment. And that is something which was has been very difficult to do. But we've learned that people don't just disappear. People don't go, I tried to work with him, he's an arsehole, I use this guy. They just don't do that. They go, that's a shame. Maybe we'll work together in the future. And a lot of the time, you'll meet people at parties or whatever, and then they go, oh yeah, we didn't do that thing, that's a shame, what about this? You don't kill people by telling them that you can't work with them if you do it politely. And we have had jobs come back, a year later.
And I guess relationships are more crucial in games. And I've tolerated working with an arsehole director for 3 months.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine, and I'm not saying there are arseholes that you've had to work with, but 2 years, I think you've got to create a relationship.
Yes.
And then that bond lasts, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a different, games are made in a slightly different way. There is no post-production phase.
Yeah, you're making it while they're making it.
Yeah. And you're part of the sound department?
You're an outsourcer, but it's not you handing some music to an editor. You're handing it to a team of people who are used to working as a team. So when you're working, you do become kind of part of that team.
Yeah. And the as you say, the best experience is you become. You make friends, and you really feel like you're part of something.
Yeah.
It depends on the project and how long you've got and how many times you can actually meet with them in person.
But we met up with Jerome, who we worked on Odyssey with. We recently met up with him, and we only met him once. But we Skyped every week, so we did become. It was really lovely.
Yeah.
He was a
mate.
know
each other.
Yeah, he was a proper mate.
Yeah.
And you don't get that, especially not in advertising, or you have to go out and party really hard in advertising to get to know anyone. But in this industry, you do. They all are in big.
It's actually quite a small world as well.
Yeah, it's a small world, and they are all team players. They all work in teams.
And they are big projects,
Yeah.
and they need to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
And you won't. It's on the whole. It's rare that you'd get a cold call in games. It's rare. That's rare that would happen. You meet people outside of the job, and then you make people aware of what you do and what you've done, and then you might hear from someone you've met before. But it's very rare that anyone would come to us wanting to talk about us possibly working on their job if we hadn't met them before. That's very
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I know that there's a different workflow to delivering computer games music. It's massively stemmed and all of that kind of stuff. Is that a kind of an organisational thing that you have to think about from the composition phase, or?
The biggest difference between writing for games and anything else we've done was the time. Is the length and size of the project.
We were very concerned when we've got our first big game.
Yeah.
How can we go on that for? We're going to disappear for a year or 2 years. That seemed strange.
When you start, yes, there's a number of hours and a number of minutes in your contract, but you don't know what any of that is. You don't. It's not as though you go to a spotting session, watch a film, you know exactly. Within 2 hours, you know roughly the music that's going to be required for that game. We're just starting a project at the moment. We know a bit about what they're going to want, but we don't know what they want for all of that. And to begin with, you're quite nervous about that, aren't you? And I think it definitely took us a few games before we're not nervous about that anymore, are we?
No, and the systemic side of it, we understand. It's not a rigid thing, otherwise it can get away with how you're writing. We write a piece of music, it's in mind, the system, and then we deliver it in a way that works for them. But when we're writing, we really try not to get too.
I think that's the hardest thing for if someone was coming and doing a game for the first time. It'd be either not getting ruled so much by the way that it's going to be implemented to kind of ruin your creativity. But on the other hand, you do need to know that, or else you could spend ages doing a beautiful piece of music that then has got some fundamental problem with it that just won't be able to...
Like looping.
Like the most simple, like not looping or not being able to be split up how they need it to be.
And then part of that as well is trusting the person you're working with, which comes with, if you work with them for a long time, this piece of music may sound really overproduced at the moment because it's got so much in it, but it's with so-and-so, he's really good. What he'll do is he's going to strip it right down and just use bits of it.
You're not necessarily making...
the finished piece.
No, or listening versions of music. Because we're writing something linear, because that's the only way to actually score the piece. You've got to write a linear piece of music that's never going to be used in a linear fashion. So it might sound overproduced or underproduced or just too busy or just weird sections, but because of the way that then the person the developer takes it and splits it up and puts it into the game, which we have quite a lot of experience about now. Then it makes sense, because that's what it's for.
Yeah, and then hearing it played back in the system, not the way you thought. So that can be like, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be used for. That you have to actually go, God, that's actually turn that off. Actually, that's really interesting, and that maybe that jars to me, but actually that works in the game, and that's a little thing as well. Just I don't know if when you've done a film, you go and the dub isn't what you expected. It's like that. It's like that, but 10 times. The mix is weird, and then it's that stem from that used with that stem from that, and they were never written together. But actually, that works really well.
Yeah.
Have you ever been tempted to get into Fmod or Wise or the implementation systems?
We luckily haven't really been asked. We've got it. And we sometimes get things sent to us in WYS.
Yeah, what's really useful is sometimes if someone sends us a project, if we've got enough skill to be able to press play and try out and see how it works.
Surprisingly complicated.
No, that's really useful, because that is a step between our linear piece of music and then hearing it in the game.
Yeah.
So that's useful, but actually learning how it works and implementation, I think that's probably best left to someone who's expert in that. If we spend our limited time putting everything into the music, they spend their time putting everything into that, then I think that's much more powerful than us trying to learn a new thing and
a lot of indies and smaller games, they will employ somebody who does sound and music and implementation.
Yeah. If we were starting again now, then maybe you would just learn, because you don't have to wait 5 minutes for your Akai to normalise something. So you probably would have time to learn Fmod at the same time. But
and then you'd be really usful, if
4WY's saying
exactly. But then you could work with you could have a team of 2 people making a game then. We're working on. There were 1,000 people on Odyssey, and luckily, it's crazy. But luckily, there were teams. It was never even. They just kept saying, "You just give us good music, and don't worry about this. We'll put it in the game."
There's one way of asking this question, which is really crass, which is how do you stop yourselves getting bored?
Yeah.
But the thing I guess what I want to say is how do you stop yourself from losing your mojo? When you're working. It's not just the length of time. It's just the sheer quantity sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about, actually, with composers who've been working for 20 years and can see that they maybe got another 20 years ahead of them. I'd say that it's really important to keep getting inspiration from things, from other music, books, art, film, just to keep, even if sometimes that's the last thing you want to do, is just to keep seeing what other people are doing. Usually that it gives me enough inspiration to
fertilise.
It's hard to keep interest in music. It's hard to still love music. That was
and new sounds all the time as well. Just keep making new sounds.
I've got to the point now where I have to have headphones on me, and if I leave the house without them, I have a bit of a panic. I've never lost the love of music, and I think that's the biggest difficulties. I still, even now, hear things. It's harder to find stuff which truly moves me. But I still love listening to it.
I don't really understand people. Maybe there's something. If a composer says they've lost the love of music, I think maybe they should stop. Maybe they should do something else for a bit. Because then maybe they just got burnt out.
Someone described to me Beethoven. The description of Beethoven is it's joy. Even when it's dark, it's joy. Yeah. And I hear that in schools when the joy has gone out of people's work. We do it by numbers.
The other thing we do, and this sounds counterintuitive, is we apply strict rules to every game that we're doing, and they're different rules to the last game we're doing. Like, we take the world and we apply rules to the map, say, and then we apply rules to the characters. So we restrict ourselves. So say if you've got all of ancient Greece, I'm only saying that because that's the most recent thing we've had released, for instance. You've got the map is split up into different biomes, which they had for the designers. So you've got arid islands, tropical islands, Peloponnese, Athenia, and we applied very strict rules to those areas. So we wrote pieces of music for all of those areas, for different things that you were doing, tasks that you're doing in those areas. And then throughout the game, we knew where's this set? Okay, we're here. We're not going to play any of those instruments anymore. We're going to play these instruments. We're going to use these scales. And that was a way of kind of keeping ourselves interested in keep each bit slightly new. So what we're not getting jaded, but just oh my god.
But we also try and do that cross project as well. Don't we? At the beginning of every project, as we try and just generate a load of new sounds, a load of new things. Maybe just reset some of the ways we've been doing. Because by the time you get to the end of a project, you are churning it out, whether you like it or not. You are churning it out. You've got to have a little break between from finishing one big game and going on to another big game, because they are so long. You've got to have some sort of a break. Sometimes we go and do a library music album that's just something completely different. New instruments, new sounds, new ways of looking at things. Because you could, if we didn't do that, we'd get bored.
We don't have templates as well.
Not even for a project.
It forms over a project.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes.
We have a couple of delays and a reverb and some mastering stuff.
P-Bass wow.
We made these. G-Bass. G-Bass what?
G-Bass, which came free on the DVD on the front.
Came off Future Music, and that's sometimes.
That I fell into a trap. I don't know if you remember. I got fired off about 3 films in a row, and I realised it was because of my template. Sounds make you find the same shapes.
I think it came from working with your Alien Isolation, coming around to you and you've got a big monitor as well, and just scrolling down an empty screen with a block here and a block here, and that was doing our nuts. But that for you, that was you knew where everything was on your screen. You had this, but we start with an empty template, and as we go along, things will become part of the sound, and we'll keep those in.
You can think, I think I'm going to use some of this, and I'm going to use a bit of this in this project. But actually, you don't really know until you've got into it a bit what works and what doesn't work, what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
You know, so that
we're not purely orchestral composers, so it's not like we have the band.
No.
I know that you approach sessions for these projects I know that we did on Alien Isolation. We spent 75% of the music budget in like the first day.
Yeah.
You know, and so you approach live sessions from a toolkit point of view.
Yeah. Because of what we just talked about then, actually not knowing, you have an idea of the direction of your music at the beginning, but that may be very different 2 years later. You want to get some stuff that you can use that will help you get into it, rather than you don't have anything.
No. That's what we did with Alien Isolation, because we knew a lot of it was going to be what people call wrongly aleatoric, you know, the atonal. And we knew that was the kind of afterthoughts on sample libraries, a few FX things, and you just hear them on everything. So we knew we had to have a dedicated library for that stuff ourselves. And also understanding what you can get away with and what you can't get away with.
And then, again, keeping yourself inspired. You've just come off a massive job. I've used those drums over and over again over that project. We need to get the same thing again, but they just have to be fresh sounds. So we will go, you know, there's some fantastic percussionists who I know you work with as well, and you get into a room and you give them some written rhythms to play. Get them to play on different things.
At the beginning of Odyssey we did that. We got your guys, Joby and...
Brett McCrossy.
Joby.
Do you think that's changed? Because when I first started doing orchestral stuff, they were really snotty, and there's like the new generation of players.
They were great. Actually, it kind of almost to a fault. It's like, wow, they really seem to be enjoying this.
I remember that from back in, back 15 years ago. I was working for a guy, Maris DeFries, who was he's quite modern producer. So at the end of every session we'd do with a musician, he would always get some samples, of the percussion they were playing, or the drum kit and everything like that. And that back in the day, that was a request that some people say no to, and some people would go, and there definitely wasn't particularly, and that wasn't necessarily welcome, depending on the person you were working with. I was doing a session, a toolkit session for a game, that musician will get paid a lot more than if it was just a take for a record.
But the use you get out of it is infinite.
Well, but I mean,
you get a lot of it. You get a lot of use out of it.
And do you kind of? I guess
we're going to take the piss and start, trying to sell those samples.
Well, no, it's like those Alien Isolation. We've never used them on other stuff, and it was, that was what was great about it. Is it's unique to that project. That's part of the romance of it. Do you also take stuff to create instruments?
Yeah. We love making bespoke instruments out of.
Again, on Odyssey, we did a lot. We went into a studio and did loads of close miking of playing stuff and bow stuff and e-bows on things.
Just to build up some keyboard instruments that didn't sound like any sort of keyboard instruments. So we had pads that were made of e-bowing an old Greek zither, or just the sustain portion of a lyre note, things like that. Just to get the, it's a way of us still being able to play pads and stuff on a keyboard, but there's, even if you process it massively, there's still just that heart of realness.
I'm so surprised at how few people do sampling, because we were at the tail end of not being able to buy sample libraries, but it's something you really recommend doing.
We had time to do it though. Again, talking about having breathing space on a job, we had a time at the beginning, to portion of time where we have time to go and do this.
Yeah, but I think it's something once you just do it, which you lock it into your workflow. Like we make new sounds every month. We make some new sounds, don't we? And that's part of it. And once you do that and get used to it,
and we're recording,
then I think it's just part of your. It's part of it.
We're getting stuff into the computer, and then that may end up in a sampler anyway, just in the process of writing, which again is the thing of not having a template. You know, is I'm going to play bass on this, but it's going to be chopped up definitely, and it may actually end up being put through a delay and then sampled back in and then used that way. It's just part of the process that we go through.
So I know that because of the NDA culture in computer games, you can't talk about what you're working on at the moment, but I have noticed there's a new... So is it like, does it tend to be 1 or 2 new boxes per gig?
That's an expensive box.
Okay.
That was the end of a project, got paid probably up quite late at night. Really.
But it was for, I mean, it was with one of our projects in mind.
Yeah, it was with a project in mind, and it was quite difficult specifically to find something to do what I wanted. So I've got an instrument I sometimes use to play it, which is a nice, different way of playing things. I've got
those are the things that are most useful as you get old and jaded. Are just things that make you do things in a different way.
Yeah. And that I have set to a guitar fretboard, so it just the intervals are different.
We got to buy a load of instruments we'd never played before, and that it just trying to play them. And most of them are tuned and not too difficult to play.
So much tuning.
But once you tune them into a scale, then they're limited in their range. But they make you play music in a different way, and that's so refreshing.
Yeah.
The stuff, the melodies you come up with and things like that just aren't the same as what you do on a keyboard or a guitar. And
there's a nice notion to come out of this conversation, and I've never thought of it this way, I think one of the worst things you can do is wait for inspiration to hit. You should go out and seek it.
Yeah, just make some sounds, try some stuff.
Go out.
Yeah, go out for a walk. Go and, you know, just listen. Go to a library. Go to an art gallery. Sounds really pretentious, but literally I like to go to bookshops and look at pictures. You know, and order some books. You know, listen. Yeah, watch some films.
Also, just sit down, find an instrument, play. But quite often with a long piece of music, we like to kind of decide on a key and a tempo, and a rough kind of sung vibe of what we want, and then Joe maybe start the intro. I'll say, well, I'll do this bit, and because we've worked together for a long time, we can do that.
Yeah.
And we'll go to our separate rooms and sit down, and blank page, and you might think, well, I've got this fucking wet Tuesday in March. I've got nothing going in here, absolutely nothing. I don't know, nothing. But just find a sound, just play it, start playing, and then that was something. Oh, actually, I want something more like that. Oh, I know that, and then you're off. And that's what being professional is. It's being able to come up with something whenever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whenever.
And that is the trick for me. That's what I've found.
Yeah.
Every job now, make a new sample set, because I just know I will not find something.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be. It literally it's just fire up some pedals and pick up a guitar, and even if it's not going to end.
You've had the same mic for 10 years.
The same mic.
And microphones don't inspire me. Sounds inspire me.
Yeah. And in our room that doesn't sound great with loads of instruments that I can't play very well. You know, it just start playing some stuff.
Yeah. As soon as you start and stop thinking about it, then all your everything you've done over the last 30 years kicks in.
Last question. I know this is like really hackneyed, and it's what I ask everyone and probably ask you guys already. But if you could go back, say you both became professional about 15 years ago.
No, we're
20.
older than that.
20, 21, 22.
I went on tour in 1997.
In the sense of
We both started quite young.
media composition.
Composing.
Okay, maybe 15.
Yeah.
If you could go back to that point and tell yourself something, what would it be? You first, Jack.
Work with other people. You don't have to do it all on your own, and specialise. Don't try and do everything because other people do that better than you. Try and find a niche. Maybe it's difficult. It's difficult in hindsight because I'm in.
Are we going back in time?
No, to tell you something.
To find Alexis 15 years ago?
Yeah, just...
I would say, just chill out,
Yeah,
don't worry, it'll be alright.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that because that would sound patronising to someone else.
It is. It is the fear. Just don't worry about it. I don't read. I don't know anything about theory, but I've got really, really good ears, and that the ears are enough, and your memory of all the music you listen to is enough to do this job. I was really good at making mixtapes. It's the same job. Just don't worry about the theory behind it all. That was my main. I'm dyslexic, and I just panicked about that and tried to study theory and stuff, and it actually just relax, man. Just make some music, and if they employ you, they like what you do as well. That's
brilliant.
That's a really long answer.
No, it's a good answer. Thanks so much to Alexis and Joe for giving up so much of their precious time for us. I hope you agree that there's some real gold dust nuggets of advice in there. So let's give them a thumbs up from all of us. Subscribe if you haven't done. Plenty of exciting acts that I'll be talking to in the future, and ding that bell if you want to be notified the next time I put up a video. See you next time. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions for Joe and Alexis, stick them in the comments down below. We'll be live streaming this Sunday, 1st of December, 1700 hours GMT. It'll be recorded so you can have a look at it in the future if you can't make it at that time. See you there, I hope.